Welcome, everyone. I'm Joe Constan. I'm privileged to be your moderator for this event, and I'm thrilled that so many of you are here. Between 200 and 300 people from across the country and around the world registered for this event. Many of you submitted questions in advance. Tonight, you'll hear from Dean Mos Kaveh, each of the college's associate deans, as well as a recent CSE graduate. We've assembled your questions and we'll do our best to get through as many as possible. The situation with COVID-19 is ever changing. We'll share the most current picture of what CSE is doing to respond to this pandemic and what we're doing to move forward. But first, we need to take a moment to acknowledge and respond to the many questions that you, and indeed that our students, staff, and faculty as well, have raised in light of the murder of George Floyd and our community's need to come to grips with systemic racism and work more effectively toward social justice and meaningful diversity and inclusion. So before we turn to COVID-19, I want to welcome Dean Mos Kaveh and ask him to speak about the College of Science and Engineering, how the murder of George Floyd has affected us, and what we're doing to build on this moment of opportunity. Dean Kaveh?
Thank you, Joe. Good evening, everybody. Dear alumni, supporters, friends, faculty, and some students on this audience, I welcome you to this opportunity to speak with you. As Dean Constant mentioned, while we were preparing for this particular town hall to discuss COVID-19 plans for the University of Minnesota and how we were going to move to our work during the summer and eventually in the fall, we were once again faced with another tragic reminder of historic injustices and the tragedies that fall upon our African-American community. The murder of George Floyd reminded us once again how significant the issues of institutional injustice and institutional problems. These are basically problems that are sanctified and supported by institutions that run our programs are in affecting communities of color and in particular the Black community. So our reaction in the College of Science and Engineering, my own, has been similar to yours. It's been outrage, it's been grief, and it's been redoubling of our commitment and effort to learn and learn more about these injustices, learn more about the history, about situations that really continue to over and over bring up such tragedies that remind us of the challenges that so many of our fellow citizens really face. And this happens, unfortunately, in all walks of life. It happens at universities as it happens at our other institutions. These injustices, these systemic racism has played out over and over within science and engineering, within our professions. And it is something that we continually have to come to grips with. This unfortunate situation that we have now recently faced and what has happened following it, of course, gives us an opportunity to really redouble and triple our effort to dig into these fundamental issues and work collectively to address them. Issues of diversity and inclusion and justice are front and center in our college. They have been. We have many programs to increase the representation of students across the full range of diverse communities at all levels of the college, undergraduates, graduates, within our faculty colleagues, staff, and everybody else. And this is something that we're going to be addressing further in future meetings. But at the moment, our focus is with our Black communities. The African American history and the African American traditions that have continuously come back to haunt that particular members of our communities. And what that means for me personally, and I know it is happening across the college, it's a moment, or these are moments for listening and learning. We have to learn. We have to listen to those who are directly affected, have been affected, continue to be affected by such injustices. And it is through that we will keep fine-tuning and expanding our efforts to meeting those challenges further within our college. So as we are speaking tonight, I know this is happening across our whole college. Each one of our departments has had programs and continues to have programs of conversation, listening, and learning. And we will get together soon to put together things that we have learned from everybody across the board within our groups of students and faculty and staff and alumni, folks like yourself and member of the community that we live in, to come up with actionable items for continuing and expanding our diversity and equity programs within the College of Science and Engineering. So stay tuned. We will be back with you to share more about what is going to happen in terms of actionable items. I do want to acknowledge a tremendous group of faculty, students, staff, and administrators who have, over the past couple of years, self-organized into a tremendous community of our Diversity and Inclusivity Alliance. And that group is going to play a leading role in coordinating the efforts that we have across the college. So stay tuned, and we'll be talking about those further in the future.
Thank you. We're now going to transition to COVID-19, to what's happened this past few months, and what's coming forward. And Mos, I think the biggest question that so many people have asked, I'm going to use versions from Emma in Minneapolis and Arturo from Mexico City, is what's happening in the fall? How soon are we going to know? Is it going to be in person? Is it going to be online? Is it going to be something else? Are student groups going to be able to get together? Are activities going to happen? What can you tell us about what things look like as we go forward to the fall?
Thank you, Emma, Arturo. These are great questions. These are questions that the university, the college certainly have been working on practically ever since mid-March, as we went into essentially an offline mode. I can tell you that things are becoming a lot more clear with respect to the university's plans. The university has announced that we will, in fact, start in earnest our calendar with students coming to campus in various forms on September 8th. So that will be the beginning. It's the normal beginning of our academic calendar. We will have a mix of modalities in the offering of classes to being very mindful of health concerns and safety for our students, as well as our faculty and teaching assistants and others who have to do the instruction. So clearly we will need to continue to have social distancing appropriately implemented in the classrooms, which means that if the classes are too large, we just will not have the space to accommodate everybody within the class. So some of those are going to be taught online, but we expect that we will have a full portfolio of a mix of modalities of both in person as well as online and mixed versions of these across the full range of the curriculum, all the way from the freshman year till through graduate programs. So we're set. And as you will hear, I think, from Dean Constant, the research is ramping back up on campus as well. So many things are gradually, but intentionally with a lot of care to ensure the safety of everybody based on the guidelines from CDC, from Minnesota Department of Health, from others on campus. We have great programs in public health at the university that help with this, that we will do this in a safe and appropriate way.
Thank you. So we have a bunch of questions that really come down to what have we learned? We've had the rest of this spring semester, Masood from Minneapolis, for instance, asks what we've learned from the rest of the Big Ten and other universities. What can we take away as lessons, best practices, and experiences?
Well, that's an excellent question, Masood. What we have learned is that we are a resilient group. That means the students and the faculty and TAs and staff, everybody, because if you happen to think back about what happened in mid-March, we pivoted to essentially alternative instruction online, primarily, within about 4 or 5 days. This means that the students had to pivot immediately within those few days, and so did the faculty and TAs and everybody else. So that's the resilience and the creativity and nimbleness of our community, certainly, and not just in science and engineering, but overall. We have, every one of us, the associate deans and myself, with the deans of Big Ten plus other leading engineering, particularly engineering programs, have been meeting regularly, and we exchange our practices and experiences. And I had one of these yesterday with the deans of engineering of Big Ten plus, and what I can tell you is that we almost all are doing similarly. So there are no magic bullets for any of us. We all have been doing similar approaches for all of these. Still, we do share our best practices. And yesterday, a lot of that was centered around testing and monitoring students as they come back on campus. So more on that later. Very good question.
Wonderful. And I'm going to combine a couple more into one last question for this section. Ken from Blaine asked specifically, what does it look like in terms of projected enrollments compared to the past? But a bunch of other questions are all sort of asking about the financial challenges that the college is going to face, but also that students and faculty in the college are going to face due to COVID-19.
It's an excellent question. Our enrollment, as we see it right now, for first-year students is quite robust and similar to a year ago, essentially. So that part is at the moment excellent. We do have issues with international students. It's a smaller group of our students who come from overseas. It's a very small group, relatively small group, but significant nevertheless. Those students will have to have a chance to get visas from their countries to enter the US. And that is something that is at this point very, very uncertain. They may not be able to reach us. In terms of budget impacts, it has been significant. The university has already faced significant challenges for the rest of the spring and summer, and the same is likely in different forms for the fall. We have been doing our best with, for example, the College of Science and Engineering Response Fund that we had a number of very generous alumni and supporters contribute to collect some funds to help our students in particular who are in special need, and we're doing that. We are doing it at the college level, and the university is doing it at the university level. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're now going to transition to what I know is everybody's favorite part of any academic event, the parade of associate deans, as the associate deans will take us through the various areas of undergraduate programs, graduate programs, faculty and research, and our embedded special surprise. So Paul, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Joe. Happy to do it. Name is Paul Strykowski, professor in mechanical engineering and the associate dean responsible for our wonderful undergraduates. Many of you out there are former undergraduates, and it's been a fun time. As Dean Kaveh had said, we are looking forward to an outstanding incoming freshman class. As the associate dean for undergraduate programs, I work very closely with our departments and our programs. So some of you may not know this, but things have changed in the college. We now have 20 different degree programs, 12 engineering, 8 in the physical sciences, mathematics, computer science, and a new program in data sciences. And we've always prided ourselves in taking good care of our students, giving them an outstanding education, but also that's both an education in the classroom and outside the classroom. Just so you know, in the world of COVID-19, there's been some challenges for sure, but our incoming freshman class this fall is actually the Dean Kaveh would like to hear this, actually slightly bigger than last year. We've been very, very successful. Our freshman class has changed a lot over these years. This year, we have close to 30% women in the freshman class. A decade ago, many of you know, if you are a women alumni, you know that you were a major minority, meaning more like 12 to 15%. We also are very proud that our incoming freshman class is close to 25% students of color, which is a number we never imagined we could achieve. And this is both a tribute to outstanding support in the scholarship world from our dedicated and alumni who've given greatly to the college. Things have changed as well in the last decade. Our 4- and 5-year graduation rates have gone from like 40 to 50% to 75 to 85%. So we're doing very, very well. But you're right. Let's talk a bit about COVID-19. The class is coming in strong, but they do indeed have many, many questions. We're doing our level best to provide them an outstanding education and dual multi-modalities, as the Dean Kaveh had stated. So the future is changing rapidly. Paul from Minneapolis asks, what have we sought feedback from our students given the experience they had this past spring? As was mentioned, we transitioned from traditional higher education, residential education and learning to online. And we did it very, very much within the context of less than a week. Yes, we did. We surveyed all of our students, and we've talked to a great deal of the faculty. And first of all, I'm going to say I'm very proud of the faculty. They really pulled this off. They worked very hard at it. But we asked the students, and the students said, you know what? It was actually very, very good. Sure, there were hiccups. Not everything was perfect. But our faculty really did take great advantage of the technology available, providing both synchronous and asynchronous delivery of course content. And we also actually, within a course of 4 or 5 days, were able to videotape laboratory experiments, send students data, and it actually worked out pretty well. Was it ideal? Definitely not, but we've learned a lot. And one of the things that we've learned actually dovetails into a second question. This comes from Joseph from California, is how do we learn from this moving forward? How do we understand the importance of student learning? And the reality is that there are parts of what we do as instructors, as faculty, where I might spend 10 minutes of a lecture and I'm just providing content, information about a given subject. If I can do that online, if I can record myself, this will allow students an opportunity to learn about things maybe in their own time so that we can focus more about the personal connections, the one-on-one connections that are important for learning. By that, I mean, we're trying to balance the needs of our students to have access to remote education at the same time providing limited face-to-face education this fall. Limited face-to-face means we have to be cognizant of the health concerns, and so we are doing social distancing. But I think many of you know who graduated from this college, we have a great pride in physical laboratories, it is absolutely critical that scientists and engineers understand how to take measurements, how to look at data, which sometimes isn't very perfect, in fact, sometimes quite wrong, understand that data, adapt to that data, and use it to understand physical processes. So we're working very hard to bring students back. We are going to give them opportunities to have online education for large lecture formats, where often there's not much engagement between the instructor and the students, but we're focusing very, very hard on the smaller learning sessions, laboratories, design groups, and things of that nature. Labs are particularly important, and this is something that was raised by Mai from Falcon Heights. Face-to-face learning is, in fact, the deans have been talking this week about getting our departments on board with various learning modalities, and I would say that the overwhelming number of our laboratories will be done in a limited face-to-face setting. You might remember a typical lab has 4 students. We still need that interaction. Yes, they might be 6 feet apart, but they still have to take the data, run the experiments. Finally, I want to comment on a note from Emily from Rochester. How are we going to learn from this experience after COVID? We all can't wait for this to end. The reality is that I believe, and all my colleagues believe, that walking on the grass on our campus is absolutely critical for the full understanding of what higher education and learning is all about. So we have to make sure that we don't just become an institution providing remote education. Will remote education be important? Absolutely, it will be important. However, it needs to be balanced by very, very small engagements between faculty with students and students with students. This is incredibly important. This is the future. There are things that we learn and we can learn them. We've all seen a TED Talk, very compelling, very outstanding, and that's great. You can learn a lot, but you still need to be on campus. These young minds need to push each other. They need to challenge each other. And this is what you do in small settings. So we are really trying hard right now. And I think it's going to be very exciting because after this experience is over, I think our students are going to really realize that some of the core content can be gained through video content and looking at your textbooks like it always has been. But we have to double down on the importance of getting connected with our students in small settings, because this is what makes us an outstanding institution. Now, at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce to you one of our college's newest graduates, actually one of our college's graduating rock stars, McKenzie Schuster. McKenzie graduated with a degree in civil engineering just last month. Her virtual graduation, which was very interesting in its own right, in the midst of the pandemic, capped off a very successful 4 years in the college. Not only as a student, but as an outstanding leader. She was actively involved with our Society of Women Engineers, probably the largest student organization we have in the college, among about 90 student organizations, incidentally. 2 weeks ago, McKenzie started her career as a graduate transport engineer at Alliant Engineering. She joins us tonight to tell us about her experiences as a CSE student and the unique way her senior year ended in, yes, the College of Science Engineering. It's all yours, McKenzie. Can't wait to hear from you.
Hello, everyone. Like Dean Strakowski said, my name is McKenzie Schuster, and today I'm here to share with you my experiences as an undergraduate student in the College of Science and Engineering, and also as a graduate during the global COVID-19 pandemic. When I began looking for college, I was a academically gifted high school student, and because of that, I wanted to attend a top institution with a competitive engineering program. Yet I still wanted to stay close to my family in Des Moines, Iowa, and that led me to the U. But my first year at the U, I struggled, and I first struggled with being an out-of-state student. Being the only student from my high school to attend the University of Minnesota, my network was very small. And I also struggled academically. Like I said, I was inclined academically in high school, and being average and being surrounded by the brightest minds from the world was very intimidating. And I had to learn how to ask questions and I started to adjust to college life. I discovered how to learn in a way that best suited me. I learned to ask for help and how to seek out the resources I needed. And I found several support networks. I found support in friends, in study groups, in student groups, with faculty, and so many additional places. While at the University of Minnesota, I also found success in internships. I learned what industry I was passionate about and wanted to seek after graduation. And I also learned the type of company I was interested in working for, and maybe more importantly, the type of company that I was not interested or not suited to work for, which led me to a full-time job offer, which I accepted in August before my senior year began. However, thinking that I had my feet under me and I had my plans, COVID-19 made sure to mix things up for many of us, for all of us. And flexibility was really important during that time frame, transitioning to virtual learning and collaborating with professors and faculty and classmates and colleagues virtually had its hiccups, but was ultimately extremely successful for me. And I think a large part of that was having the confidence and the knowledge to know what resources I needed and how to seek those out in the long run. Another big part of my success was seeking out my networks, my support systems, and the Society of Women Engineers was a major support network for me. During COVID-19, we continued to host Zoom events, and we continued sending out weekly emails to our members as well as maintaining a social media presence. We did shift our focus from more professional and technical focused events to more community building, but that was what our members needed at the time to make sure that they could still interact with other members and students and feel like they were supported in their degrees. After navigating and graduating through virtual learning, I did join Alliant Engineering 2 weeks ago as a graduate transportation engineer, and I am so thankful and grateful to have joined such a great company. I know several other College of Science and Engineering students and graduates who have had job offers postponed or rescinded or canceled, and I'm very fortunate to be a part of such a great company that has helped me to get to work so quickly after graduation. So some final thoughts to leave you with as I look back at my time in CSE and forward to my new career as a young engineer. As I'm sure many of you can relate to, the support systems that I had throughout my time at the U were essential. Through my peers and family and friends and faculty, everybody played a role in my success. The students in this college are extremely motivated and incredibly intelligent. They're dedicated to their fields of study and to their industries, and they will do great things. And lastly, I'm more than pleased with my education and my time at the U. I feel as though the end justified the means. I'm excited to begin my career with a fantastic company, and it was worth all of the time and the hours and everything that went into it.
Well, thank you so much, McKenzie. We are delighted and proud to now be able to count you among our alumni, and to, I hope, have the chance in the future as well to share your inspiring message, not just with fellow alumni, but with the students who were in your shoes and who need to hear that all that hard work turns out to be worth it. We're going to transition back to answering the questions that were brought in, and we'll move over to graduate and faculty affairs and Ellen.
Good evening. I'm hoping for a feed here.
You're good, Alan. Go for it.
Thanks. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm Ellen Longmire, and I'm Associate Dean for Academic Affairs. As Joe said, the way that's defined is I handle everything to do with faculty, from working on hiring through their careers, including promotions and eventually retirements. I also work with the graduate programs and graduate students in the college. And you want me to take the questions, Joe, or are you going to take the questions?
Oh, you go ahead.
Okay. So I see there are a number of questions here, and I'm going to start with faculty-related questions. For example, Mona from Virginia, who I see is currently an academic, asked, what's the impact of COVID on the faculty? And I think you've heard a little so far about teaching and how the faculty have really had to pivot to teaching. What else is going on with our faculty is all the faculty are involved with research, and in addition to formally teaching classes, they're working with graduate and undergrad students in research as well as postdocs. And everyone that worked in labs was really shut down for a couple of months, or also those that might be doing field work. We have recently started reopening labs for those that require doing work in the lab, for example, running experiments. And I know with my own students, we've started that up. We're following various protocols to be safe in the lab and accommodate multiple people while maintaining social distancing. And I'd say that's going fairly smoothly. There are a lot of students and faculty that really are happy to be able to access their labs again. What were they doing for the months in between? I think a lot of faculty were working on writing papers and proposals, analyzing data that they might have had, and pretty much whatever they could think of, as well as what their graduate students could do to advance their work. And I would say that among the faculty I've spoken with, a lot of effective work was accomplished, but people were starting to get very anxious to get back in the lab. I'll say one thing that I've noticed, I think, is a problem due to COVID and the fact that we've all gone remote. One thing is we're not allowed to travel. And faculty tend to travel a lot to visit collaborators at other universities and give seminars, as well as to conferences. And one issue that I see is that our youngest faculty that are on the tenure track are not able to do this right now. And it's a problem because it's a way of building your name and reputation and getting to know the people in your field. And I suppose to counteract that, what we're starting to see is certain conferences are being held online. We're also seeing more and more remote webinars popping up where people can present their work through a forum like this, like Zoom. And I think that works pretty well, but I still feel the networking aspect is somewhat lacking. So those are some things I have to say about faculty. And one more point, maybe two more points. One is that all of our tenure track faculty, and this is similar to most other universities, their tenure clocks have all been extended automatically for a year if they feel the need. If they want to go sooner for tenure, they're allowed to do that. But this won't be held against them if they take an extra year. One other point about the faculty I should note is that we're currently in really a hiring freeze for faculty. Over the spring, we were allowed to finish up some of the faculty searches we began this year, but it turned into something called an exceptional hiring process, so that every candidate we wanted to make an offer to had to be approved at the provost level as an exceptional hire. right now we don't even have that. We have a freeze. And so what that means is we're hiring fewer faculty. Those that we have hired in the past year, many of them will not start until fall of 2021. And so I'd say we're projecting about a 5% drop in our faculty in the coming year across CSE. Now I'll switch to talk about grad students, where I see there are a number of questions, starting with how have the grad students been impacted so far? I talked a little about how we've tried to carry on research. All grad students that have been supported either through teaching or research assistantships continued to be supported through the entire spring, and as possible, all of their appointments are being continued in the summer. I should say those are mainly research assistantships, and they're trying their best to advance their research. And also, as I alluded to before, I think they've been reasonably successful, although certainly some are held back due to these lab shutdowns and some slowdowns. What else I should say is that if you received a graduate degree, maybe you had to do some graduate level exams. All of those are still being accomplished, typically through Zoom if they're oral exams like master's and PhD defenses or oral preliminary exams. And thinking about what else I wanted to say currently with the grad students, I think they also suffer from fewer networking opportunities with faculty because they also are not allowed to attend conferences right now, which is a really exciting and useful activity for grad students, especially in the summer. So they've been hindered in this way. And maybe that's what I'll say about the current situation. I've also been asked about what's going to happen moving forward into the fall. And I think I have, so I have various questions from Raj in Massachusetts, Chang in New York, Faith from Princeton. A couple things to say. Our application level this year was pretty much dead on with last year in terms of numbers of students, although within individual programs we see some significant ups and downs. Lots of students have been accepted and are planning to come. We are planning orientation activities, and depending on the situation in a couple of months, they will be more or less in person versus online. One big issue is with our incoming international students. I think Mos mentioned this. Right now, all of the US immigration offices in other countries are closed. And what that means is new international students that want to come in the fall are not able to obtain visas. And what we forecast is these offices are not going to be open in time. They're not going to be able to make up backlogs in time that these students can really get the visa to arrive by September 8th. And so what we think will happen is with these international students who represent a significant portion of our grad population incoming, is either they're going to end up having to defer their start until the spring, or in certain cases, their tuition can be covered through their department they'll be able to start their classes remotely in the fall and hopefully join in the spring. So, okay, I'm going to wrap it up there, I think, and give it back to Joe.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to now move out of my moderator hat and into my Associate Dean for Research hat. Sarah from Falcon Heights asked when students are going to get back into research labs. Carolyn from Minneapolis and Robert from Iowa asked about, what undergraduate research is going to look like in the fall and what the plans are going to be for senior year students and what happens if there's a COVID flare-up. What do we do? I guess I should take this in two parts, starting with where we are now. Research in this college never stopped. Most researchers have been able to make progress remotely. Even in late March and early April, we had students, faculty, and staff working in labs on projects related to COVID-19 and protecting our health workers. And in May, we started a process we call Sunrise of bringing people back to work in labs on campus. Our first graduate students were in the lab May 11th. The first undergraduates returned just this past Monday. And in total, more than 1,000 researchers have returned to on-site work, the vast majority of them students, though their time is limited, as I'll come back to later. As we look forward towards the fall and next academic year, we think we're going to follow a similar pattern, that there will be lab access when we can provide it safely, and when people can work from a distance, we're going to ask them to work from home or from a distance. Research groups will mostly not meet face-to-face, but will meet online. And we're taking every step we can to prevent a COVID-19 flare-up, but we're also preparing for it, knowing that we might have to shut down a lab, a building, or even the whole campus, depending on what the public health situation demands. And if that happens, we will do what we did this spring in providing as much flexibility as possible to students to shift the timing of their projects, or if necessary, the nature of their projects, so that they can complete their degrees successfully. Barry from St. Paul, and there were some other questions I think are in the same vein, was asking about the steps we use for equipping our buildings to protect people and filters. And I read the question and I said, gee, Barry knows more about this than I do. He's clearly an engineer and I'm a computer scientist. But I'm really glad there are questions about health and safety. Our faculty, staff, and students have been working alongside the university's facilities experts, their health and safety experts, as we're looking at issues of how to best filter the air, how to protect people with masks, how to protect people with face shields. And operationally, our safety practices are based on physical separation, mask use, hand washing, disinfection of surfaces and tools, but most of all on de-densification, having fewer people in the space than there were before. And so our labs are a lot more empty, and researchers are doing their preparation and analysis at home and only coming into the lab to carry out the specific activities that need to happen in the lab. And that's been working so far to help keep people as safe as we possibly can. The last question I'm going to take is from Lisa in Minneapolis, and I'm taking this last because I just love the question, which is, well, what are the exciting innovations going on in research at the U of M? So I'll spend the next 45 minutes on I'm not allowed to do that even as a moderator, but I am excited about this. And we have a wealth of research. There are COVID-19 related projects, from new technologies for rapid testing and diagnosis to new protective equipment, to studying the virus itself to guide vaccine work. We have people deploying their talent to look at how we protect our water supplies and how do we make sure there's no disease in water stores that have not been moving through pipes for 3 months. We've got people understanding new transportation patterns, given the change in how people will use public transit and private, and people refining the models that health departments are using to battle the pandemic. I wish I had time to tell you about agricultural robotics work and promising directions in cryopreservation of living cells and 3D printing on organs, which is just as cool as it sounds, even if I don't want it done on my organs. Harnessing quantum technology and a whole lot more. I'll just say stay tuned to the alumni magazines, or just go to the news section of the cse.umn.edu website, and you can find out a great deal more. But there's a lot of exciting research going on. Just as you've heard, there's a lot of exciting innovation going on to make the best of this situation in teaching and in how we do our daily business. And with that, I would like to welcome back Dean Kaveh to wrap it up and to say goodnight to all of us.
Thank you, Joe. I'm excited just listening to you all. Well, thank you again for joining us for this evening, but this is a beginning. We plan to have more of these follow-up distance meetings with you. We urge you to contribute to the conversation and to solutions as we talk about COVID-19 challenges, as we've been talking about the institutional racism and diversity and inclusivity. All of these are major problems, and scientists and engineers are problem solvers. I realize that we may not directly attack all of these things, and our alumni are the ones who, you're the ones who are dealing with real problems, frankly, and you're solving them. So we would really appreciate and urge you to share your thoughts, your suggestions. As I told you early on, I'm learning, we're all learning, we're listening. Please send us your suggestions and get engaged. We'll be back with you. In fact, we'll show you some resources that we will also send you an email. Is this on the screen now? Okay, I can't see it, but all right, very good. So in the coming days, we will also send you an email with these resources, and we hope that, that you continue to get engaged with us as you were for this meeting. A lot is going to happen, become a lot more clear in early July, we expect, with the details of the fall plans and our plans in the areas of diversity and inclusion. And so we look forward to connecting with you again. In the meantime, please stay safe, stay well, stay engaged, and thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a good evening.